In this video, we'll be learning how to make a slab ornament. Now, this ornament can be for any holiday. I am going to do a Christmas tree. Now, before you start any slab project, you should have a template already pre-made. This is just a little tree I printed out and I cut it out, so I am all prepared and ready to go. So first off, before you start any ceramics project, you must wedge your clay. My clay is already pre-wedged, and I also flattened it a little bit to make it easier for when I roll out into a slab. On the sides are 2 thickness strips of the same and equal thickness. That is gonna make sure that I have a nice, even and consistent slab when I roll it out. So we're gonna begin rolling out our slab. I'm gonna start in the middle of my clay. I'm gonna just gently push forward and back. I'm gonna do that about 3 to 4 times. All right. Now I gotta flip it. So you're not going to roll it out all on the first try. You're gonna have to flip it a few times to make sure the clay stretches out nice and evenly. Now I'm gonna rotate this because I want to make sure it is wide enough to fit my template. I have little edges going off and that is not good. So we're gonna widen it a little bit, push it forward and back, gentle pressure. I'm gonna flip this over again. So you should do about 4 flips. All right, and that is going to fit my Christmas tree beautifully, so we can move on to the next step. Now this next step is optional, but if you would want to roll in texture, you can use one of the texture palettes and gently roll it in. If you're not interested in doing texture, you can just take your rib and compress the clay. Remember, if we're just compressing, we need to compress both sides of the clay. And I'm actually going to do both sides now before I roll my texture in. Compressing clay adds strength to the clay. It also gets rid of the texture. All right, beautiful. So we compress both sides. Now I'm gonna roll in texture. Now this rolling pin is a little bit shorter, so I gotta just be careful when I roll it in that I'm not flattening the clay or thinning the clay out too much. So I'm going to start right in the middle. I'm just going to gently press, and then as I roll, it's going to leave that beautiful texture. So that is an option you can do. Okay, so now I'm going to place my tree right over that design, and I'm going to use a needle tool to cut it out. Now I'm just going to take the needle tool and I'm going to trace around my template. I don't use an X-Acto knife because it can cut my canvas. Also, it creates really sharp edges that are hard to smooth out. So a needle tool is usually the best way to go. And I am also right now not pressing all the way through. I'm going about halfway in and I'm just lightly tracing the tree so I can go back over it a second time. So there I have my tree. It's not cut all the way through, so I'm going to go through it again. If you have a template that's a little bit more geometric, say like a square or a triangle, you can use a ruler to get nice, even cuts. Nice straight lines if you need to. But if you have round, say like a circle or an oval, you just have to try your best. Gets easier with practice. All right, so now I'm gonna pull this apart, and I got my tree in its clay form. Now we got to do some cleanup. So I want to clean up those edges, make sure they're nice and clean. Ooh. Also be careful because your clay is still pretty fresh. So you can go from the inside outwards to smooth some of that out. Also, when you're done adding your decorations, you can take a paintbrush, a wet paintbrush, and you can get into those little nooks and crannies. I'm going to flip it to the other side, smooth this out too. All right, so we're gonna flip it back over. We'll clean up those little edges in a minute. But now you can add any decorations you want. So I'm gonna roll out just a little bit of a tinsel-like decoration. And then I think I'm gonna put a star on it. So I like how that looks. Probably will take that from here to here. Now remember, whenever you're attaching two pieces of clay, you need to make sure you score, slip, and weld. Super important. All right, I think I'm gonna roll out another little piece. Maybe I'll adjust this one. I think another one right there will look good. So when you're rolling out coils, you want to make sure the whole coil is nice and even. You don't want thick spots, you don't want thin spots. I think I like that, so I'm going to cut it off right here. So now I'm going to score and slip it. And I'm using my needle tool to score because this is a very small piece. Sometimes the score is really wide. We don't really want it showing too much. So I'm going to attach that on there. You can make Christmas lights. You could put a star on it. You can do a lot with just simple shapes and decorate it how you want. All right, and then I'm just going to gently press these down so they stick. All right, so that's going to be my decoration for now because I need to show you the final step. Since this is an ornament, it needs to have a hole so we can put a ribbon or put some string through so we can hang it up. So this is a hole tool. It's like the name says, it's going to create a hole for you. So I like to space it out just a little bit from the top, and I start right there at the top. Now I take this tool and I just rotate it, and sometimes it will come out, sometimes it won't. But I'm going to stick through, and I can stick all the way through it, but I have to be gentle because my ornament is still plastic. And then I have a hole. I also want to make sure I smooth out that back section. Make sure it's nice and neat. I can go back through with the hole, give it a little bit of a shimmy, a swirl, smooth that out at top, and then there you have it. Now for any additional steps, just making sure you're cleaning it up, taking a paintbrush in between, smoothing out any of those sharp edges, taking care of doing fine craftsmanship. But there you have it. That's how you do an ornament.